Hello there, my name's Nick and I'm here setting up this YouTube channel to share some feelings and thoughts on my spirituality and some ideas that I've had, and I'd like to share them with you. Okay, so this is my first video, my introduction, so you just got to bear with me, and as time goes by I'm sure I'll get better at it. I've got no audio visual experience and I'm sure that's apparent. Okay, so what is living for the living? Okay, I know it's a scripture in some gospel I'm aware of, but for me, it came to me 27 years ago. When I was 21 years old, I had a Apple Mac computer given to me for my birthday. Days before the Windows packages and the Word packages, I think we were using one called Lotus 123. And what LFTL stands for is living for the living. Living for the living. What it means is by incorporating some simple practices, some simple ideas, some simple goals, or spiritual based. You haven't got to be religious. You can be totally against it. It's about you. Okay? So there is a definition that religion and spirituality are the same. No, they're not. They're totally different. So if you look at it from a scientific point of view, we are masses of energy. So even if you don't believe in the concept of spirit, you must believe in the concept of energy, because it's scientific, you know, it's proven. So what LFTL is for me, it's a series of ideas, rituals, concepts, user-friendly, in your home, that you can incorporate to enhance your living experience. You know, for many years I've been to different spiritual retreats all over this world, and I've embarked on many different concepts. And what this one is, it's an idea of bringing them all together. All the different religions that I've been involved with, the monolithic religions, the contemporary religions, and the indigenous religions, all come together in a fashion where we're all just one, really. We're all just coming as one. You know, most of the wars today in our world are caused by money or religion. And a lot of the wars are caused by fractions within the same religion. You haven't got to be a rocket scientist to realise that our world is in great change. And we need to move with it, really. We need to be there, be accountable, and find our way through this. So living for the living is just a bunch of practical ideals that I've formulated over my life, really, based upon all of these interesting things that I've done. I need to state from the offset that I'm not an academic. Now, I've got no PhDs, none of that. I'm not a doctorate, so on and so forth. I'm just an average human being who's done some really interesting things, spent his life, you know, filling his brain, which is a sponge, even though it's not a vastly academic brain. It's still sponge-like, it's open to learn, and I've formulated many ideas that are based upon all the religious stuff that I've studied, all of the indigenous stuff that I've studied and been involved in. So I haven't been a journalist on the outside reporting, I've lived and breathed these cultures. So the spiritual paths and the psychology movements, you know, all of them come together, you know, and history too. So I just would like them to put them in a package where it's user-friendly and people can get the best out of it. So living for the living, practical guides to gain totality in this the world of chaos is just a set of practices and principles we work by. So I'll just give an example, principles. So I'm very hung upon this concept of world, my world. Okay, so what is my world? We know the world of abstract matter is here. It's everywhere, you know, we can feel it. So that's the material world, the tangible world. I think it was Albert Einstein who said, reality is merely an illusion, if albeit a very persistent one. In all reality, the world is what you see it. It's how you see it. But what's happened, I feel, in our culture is that we've forgotten how to dream. We've forgotten how to believe. You know, there's so much obsession on materialistic things. you know, on income, salaries, jobs, and you know, I do appreciate the concept of socialism. I've read a lot of Marx and so on. Idealistically, it would never work because inside the concept of socialism, we don't really possess the idea of individuality. But and I've also had the egoic life. For 5 years, I ran quite a successful business. I built myself, and I was lost to commercialism and capitalism. So I'm not saying it's something I haven't done. In all truth, I could say I'm a hypocrite, but I don't mind. I'm not here to be judgmental. I'm just saying that was then, and this is now. So this idea of world is what I talk about. Your inner world. You know, whatever you can do inside this world, you can project out to that world. So, you know, I incorporate many different ideas. One of them, prayer, real prayer, you know. What is the difference between the different prayers that I feel that we're into? A lot of people pray for the sake of it. A lot of people pray for selfish needs. Real prayer is praying for something with love and intent that moves you. And also without any accolade, without receiving anything in return for it, you know. In an obsessed world of social media, you know, I feel we have lost who we are. And it's moving on in my lifetime now to virtual, eventually, and because of COVID-19, we have basically sat on our asses for 2-3 years, and me included have enjoyed it. So we're moving on to a new area of work now, which is highly discussed, the AI side of things. There was an interesting book I read by a super guy called James Lovelock. He's recently died at about 102, maybe 2 years ago, back in 2021. He formulated an idea called the Gaia hypothesis, which was an idea that he, a scientist, an inventor, working for major, you know, major companies throughout the world. He was also a spy, which he doesn't say too much about, but that was the Second World War. He was not a spiritualist person, he was not anything. But he came up with this idea, and he called it Gaia, of Mother Earth, our Earth, having the capacity to be self-regulating. Obviously, a very organic idea. And in the 60s, when he formulated it, everybody laughed at him. You know, his peers, they all laughed at him. 40, 50 years later, they're not laughing now, are they? He won every single prize going, which he had no interest in egoic. And by the time he died, he wrote one last book, and it was called Nova Scene. So I'm just highlighting he's not a spiritual person. He was a scientist, an inventor, he was an academic, all of these things. But this last book he wrote was called Nova Scene, which was basically how the machines are going to take over. You know, I've got much love for cinematography, and I remember in my, you know, very early years watching the likes of Terminator. And now, you know, what he's saying, for a generation or two, we will process this artificial intelligence, and then it will process us. We're only hearing on the news now that we're pretty much redundant, aren't we? You know, it's not far. We're not too far away from being redundant. From the times of the Industrial Revolution, and because of religion spreading, we were encouraged to have all of these children. So, you know, what's our population now? 8 to 10 billion? Probably 9 billion with the unrecorded births. You know, what was it 100 years ago? So all of this was because of modern medicine, but two, to expand the world. Now we're facing the concept of not being necessary at all, totally redundant. So where are we going to be then? You know, when I talk about these worlds I discuss, you know, for example, how many times have I seen people invest all of their life into a career, which I never did. I studied enough, and I always worked, but my son always come first. I always was very, I was very aware that it's important to give him. So he never had the big of everything, the big cars and stuff, but we had each other. And now he's an adult. He always says to me, you know, he had a fantastic childhood. And that basically not only fills me with love and joy, but it also personifies what I'm saying. So all these people have these big jobs, buying big cars, the kids are in outdoor clubs, school, they're not having any family time. And then they go to work one day, but they've invested all of their intention in and they're made redundant. Where are you then? You are now unloved by the thing that you love the most. So what I devised this idea of living for the living was about small acts of finding your world for, you know, disciplines, meditations, goals, dreams, lots of theories, and it's poetry in motion. I doubt it will ever be published on the assumption that I don't want to give a publishing house 90% of my royalties, or it's crap. Nobody wants to read it, and I'm self-idealised, and I'm built in this cocoon of self-belief that I believe the average person wants change. So that's where I'm at. So living for the living is a base of principles and ideas to navigate this world of chaos, the world abstract matter outside our window, but from a place from inside your soul, your heart, your intention, or whatever you want to do. So I'm strung on my world, as in your world, being from your heart. Learning various ways to navigate it. Because we're not taught, you know. For all we know, we could have all of this completely wrong. You know, we don't know, do we? We're told about this, we're told how to learn, we're told how to think, and then all of a sudden we might come to the end of our life and think, my God, I've got it completely wrong. I have no idea who I am. I have no idea who I'm going. Me personally, I love scriptures, I love ancient, ideas, the Dead Sea Scrolls of the Desert Fathers, the various Buddhist books, Islam books, which are really hard to get hold of, a good hadith and stuff like that, but the books that have been written about the South American cultures, you won't get a book that's written by them because they didn't write it down. Their history, philosophies were put down in the word of stories from generation to generation, and they were kept hold sacred that way, so they were never written. So unless you can find somebody, a good shaman or Karandaran, who's going to show you it, you're never going to be able to know it. And I've been blessed in my life to be around many of them and working. Some I call my friends, some are teachers, and I've incorporated all these ideas from all of these spiritual paths, journeys, monolithic religions, psychology. I'll give you a classic example. Carl Jung, very, very interesting man to me, and the more I read of him and digest what he's saying, the more I think he was more on my path than I am on his. You know, he married into wealth, so his wife Emma was very wealthy where they lived in Switzerland, and he was able to build himself this tower, was it Bologun or something, and spend his life writing. He did work at an institute before he was married, but he was able to do this, and he wrote some amazing ideas. And there's a wonderful story that I'll tell you now. It's called the Jung Codex. Jung Codex. You'll never find it. You will never find a book written on it because nobody wanted to. Towards the end of his life, in and around the time of the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found all of these, scriptures written on parchment, whatever it was, and they couldn't, and the Gospel of St. Paul, I think it is, which was Judas, was all wrong. I don't want to upset any Christians, but they said it wasn't about that. Judas didn't sell Christ out. It was all written down in these scrolls up until about the 4th century, up in the desert fathers. So we're talking, up to the Arabian Peninsula, Syria, where it is now. 4th century was obviously way before Islam was introduced properly into the 7th and 8th, even though a lot of the traditions used their ideologies. The messenger Muhammad, the main message didn't come down until the 8th century. So they said, we're going to take this codex to Carl Jung in the 1950s. He's coming to the end of his life, and because he spent so much with formulating symbols and sacred messages, as well as obviously reinventing psychology and doing the psychoanalytical movement. So, you know, introvert, extrovert, anime, animus. So they took it to him and he read it and he was dumbfounded, and his words were, and this was in his own writing, this was in his autobiography, which wasn't allowed to be published until after he was died. And he said, these people know what I know about the heavens. I thought it was new and I'd kind of revolutionised it. And he said, so, because obviously history is only written by the people who write it, i.e. that was Winston Churchill. So someone writes history down, propaganda, and they throw it down and again, eventually it becomes believable. We don't know what actually is real. Someone's written it from a long time ago. How do we know it's real? Only because someone wrote it doesn't mean it's truth. So what Jung said prior to the 4th century, when they changed a lot of the theology of he said they knew what I knew about the heavens. So they knew then, and it was hidden for like 1800 years, 1700 years. And all of these concepts that I brought together, from that of the Quero Indians in the Peruvian plateaus, you know, the Pachacuti, which was an Inca king, but also a turning of the time, to the Catholicism, theology, shamanism, Buddhism, Islam, and I don't want to upset anybody by saying I know your religion. I'm just saying I have spent my entire life dedicated to the pursuit of all of this and find the common denominator for all of them and break it down as what I call myself as a spiritual socialist. As economic socialism is a redistribution of wealth, spiritual socialism is the redistribution of our energy, our spirituality. And what I mean by that is we don't need to have figureheads to be the go-between between gods, male, feminine, androgynous. It doesn't matter, we don't need them. We have the right. We're not born sinners. We have the right as individuals, if we feel with intent we want to have that direct connection with the gods. You know, the sun, the Mother Earth, and in Quero, Pachamama, the Inti, or, you know, the Mother Earth was resonant in early Christian work. It was only in the 4th and 5th century that this Mother Mary was incorporated into the concept of Christianity. You know, prior to that, we prayed to the earth. We called it our mother, our nurturer, the father, the son, the provider, archetypal family values. You know, and I bring them all together with all of my experience, a non-academic, just a human, real experience, all these rituals I've done, you know, all together into this ideology of spiritual socialism, which is for you at home to feel able to connect to the big gods in the world, to the little gods inside of you, and create this cocoon of love. You know, at this point in my life, I am no longer chasing anything and I'm no longer running away. I am just in this static suspension of love, connected to the forces of the mother and the father, whatever religion has this way of life, to the archetypes of the elements, the cardinal points, or in Quero we have the serpent, we have the jaguar, we have the serpent, the jaguar, the hummingbird and the condor. They're all the same. They're all the same energy. Exactly the same. And what was so interesting about the Peruvian, obviously Francesco Pizarro took over in 1533, is that they taught exactly the same concepts and they just turned the religion around. So Mother Earth was Mother Mary and so on and so forth. So when you see a lot of these, you know, medicine men, they're religious. They've incorporated Catholicism with the indigenous, I say shamanism, but that was everywhere. Shamanism, but the indigenous work of the high plateaus, of the Queros and all the Shipoba which I lived with as well in the Amazon rainforest. Lots of different things. And the common denominator, if you break it all down into a simple concept, is love, light and intention. Love for thyself, project onto the world light, and that's all. And that's all I project. So I've got these series of ideas I write about, series of practices, make them user friendly. You can watch these videos, you are allowed, you know. I loved it in these, you know, these mountains and vision quests, lots of things. I loved it. And if I had my way, I'd move straight now back into the mountains of the Peruvian plateaus, and you'd never see me again. But I don't. For various reasons I don't, and so if I'm going to be in this world, as in this reality for me, I'm going to get my best out of it. So one of my ways of medicine is to show other people what I've found. You know, throughout this interesting life, I'm going to read passages from my book I've read. We're going to discuss what I've basically discussed, where I got the ideas from, and then just see where we go with it. You haven't got to be religious or spiritual to understand that you've got an energy body. They can take photographs of your aura now. So it's about accountability for you. You know, so that's what I'm prepared to do. That's living for the living. It's you know, it's a journey that I've been taking, and I hope you take it with me. And in all fairness, I always do my best, and I hope you enjoy some of the things. Thank you for watching. Journey well.